While history may be boring to some folks, it's incredibly important that we study history. And as Christians, I think it's important that we at least be aware of church history, where we've come from, the battles that have been fought, the struggles that have been a part of what it means to be a follower of Christ from the very earliest days. And so if you're starting out in church history and you're wanting to study more, wanting to know more about the major figures, the major events, the major thoughts that were had, the battles, the arguments, all of that, the triumphs, the tragedies that happened in church history, I want to recommend to you a few resources. I want to focus this video on some resources for the early church, the first roughly 500 years of the history of the Christian church. And so you have the first century AD from the time of Christ and the apostles and those first generations up until the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the late 5th century. And it's a dynamic period of time. It's a interesting period of time. It's where a lot of what it means to be Christian really is put into the form that we know it today. Doctrinally, that's where we get the stories of the martyrs, where you have such a valuable heritage in those first few centuries. So let me recommend a few resources to you. The first one, and this will be a good one throughout the study of church history, is The Story of Christianity by Justo Gonzalez. It actually, this is a special single printing of a 2-volume work. So there's 2 volumes, and this is a wonderful, very clear, concise story, as the title says, of Christianity. So you see the major events, the major figures, very accessible, easy to read, wonderful resource. I cannot recommend this one enough if you're wanting to at least get a basic picture of what it means to be a Christian and the major events and major people. When it comes to the study of any subject, going to the primary sources is incredibly valuable. And so this series it's the Anvil series. There's several different volumes in it. This one by Roland Bainton, who's one of the major figures in church history studies, called Early Christianity, deals with the first few centuries. There are very short introductory essays at the beginning, but then there are primary sources interwoven into this as well. So you can actually read some of the firsthand accounts that's going on. One of the best things in here is the martyrdom of Polycarp, one of the greatest figures in the early history of the church. So I recommend this resource to you as well. One of the things, too, when you study church history is you realize that it was not a smooth where everybody got along all the time. There were arguments that were had, wanting to clarify certain things. And that led to the beginnings of creeds and church councils, where individuals got together and really worked through some of the logistics of what should Christians believe. And so I want to recommend to you 2 resources that are good introductory sources for you. They're by Justin Holcomb. They're small little books. The first one, Know the Creeds and Councils, deals with some of the basic information about the different creeds, the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, and the various councils that were held in the history of the church, giving you why were these councils considered important, what were the issues that were at stake, and what were the conclusions that were reached. Part of that process also is dealing with heresy, and so another volume in that series, Know the Heretics, helps to understand not just what do Christians believe, but what were the beliefs that were considered outside of orthodoxy, and why were those not accepted. So this is another really very helpful resource to know some of the heresies, because really there's nothing new under the sun, and many of these heresies creep up from time to time, even now. And so knowing what those are can be very helpful. Along those same lines, the development of doctrine, and where do these ideas come from? Who helped put into language some of the core doctrines that are considered orthodox? So this work, it's a classic, Early Christian Doctrines by J.N.D. Kelly. is a wonderful, wonderful survey of what did the early church believe and how did they put that into language that we now can look back and say that's what it means to be Christian. And so this is a little bit more of an in-depth study than an introductory level. Taking the Gonzalez book, maybe the Bainton book, and supplementing it with this will help give you a picture of those early years and the struggles and the battles that were had when it comes to the development of early Christianity. And then you need to know some of the major figures. And the most important figure toward the end of the early church period is St. Augustine of Hippo. His work on his kind of spiritual autobiography, The Confessions, is, I would consider, essential reading for any Christian. His work, City of God, helps us understand what it means to live in a world where the world is hostile to Christianity, but the kingdom of God is in place as well. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful work. But to know Augustine as a person, you need to read a biography, and there's no better biography of Augustine than Peter Brown's Augustine of Hippo. This book goes into not only his life, but his thought, and so much of what we believe about the core truths of Christian faith were kind of put into language that we still use when it comes to some of these doctrines by Augustine. So I would encourage you to read a biography like Augustine of Hippo by Peter Brown to better understand what it means to be somebody who is a thinker of Christian thought and to be somebody who cares about truth. So I want to encourage you as you begin your journey in church history, as you begin to study, pick up some of those books. There'll be some links below so that you can pick up any of those copies of these works, and that would be greatly appreciated. As always, if you like this content, like it, share it, subscribe to the channel. You can also subscribe to my Substack. That's where I do some long-form things, so I'll be doing some longer review-type work on these issues and other church history matters. But I look forward to you growing in your walk with Christ as you study church history. As always, I'm Matt. This is Living Pastoral, and God bless.